In 1923, a German woman needed a wheelbarrow full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. 15 years later, German tanks rolled through Paris without firing a single shot. This is the story of the most terrifying economic and military resurrection in human history. November 11th, 1918. The guns go silent across Europe. Germany surrenders. But here's what the history books rarely tell you. Germany's army was never defeated on German soil. Not once. Soldiers returned home, not to a victory parade, not to a hero's welcome, but to a country already in revolution. Street by street, city by city, workers' councils were seizing government buildings. The Kaiser had fled. The old order had collapsed. And the soldiers who had bled for 4 years couldn't understand what they'd come home to. Then came the story, the myth that would poison Germany for a generation. German generals, protecting their own legacies, told the public the army had been betrayed. Not beaten, betrayed. By politicians, by Jews, by anyone who had sued for peace. It was a lie, a deliberate, calculated lie. But in a nation desperate for an explanation, lies travel faster than truth. And then came Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles didn't just end World War I. It surgically dismembered Germany. 13% of its territory, gone. 10% of its population, gone. The entire Navy surrendered. The Air Force disbanded. The Army capped at 100,000 men. And Article 231, the War Guilt Clause, forced Germany to accept full legal and moral blame for the Great War. Germany wasn't just defeated, it was dismantled. To understand what came next, imagine your country's currency becoming so worthless that people literally burned it for heat, because it was cheaper than firewood. The Weimar Republic was born drowning. Communist uprisings in Berlin, a far-right coup, the Kapp-Putsch, attempted to seize the government in 1920, political assassinations in broad daylight. The new democracy was under attack from every direction before it had learned to walk. But nothing prepared Germany for 1923. When Germany fell behind on reparation payments, France and Belgium marched troops into the Ruhr, Germany's industrial heartland, and seized its factories directly. Germany's response? Tell the workers to strike. And to pay those striking workers, the government did the one thing it should never have done. It printed money. $1 had cost 4 German marks in 1914. By November 1923, $1 cost 4.2 trillion marks. Trillion. The price of bread doubled every 3 days. Life savings evaporated overnight. An entire generation of middle-class Germans watched everything they had built turn to paper. The psychological scar this left did not fade. It festered, and it would be exploited. While the world watched Germany suffer, something else was happening in secret. Something the Allies had explicitly forbidden. In 1922, while hyperinflation still raged, Germany signed the Rapallo Treaty with Soviet Russia. On the surface, it was a trade agreement. Underneath, it was a military conspiracy. German soldiers trained on Russian soil, far from Allied inspectors. Junkers aircraft factories were hidden inside Russia. Panzer tactics were tested on Russian fields, disguised as agricultural training grounds. The Versailles Treaty had banned Germany from building a military, so Germany built one somewhere else. Then came the money. The Dawes Plan of 1924 opened American banks to German loans. Hundreds of millions of dollars flooded in. Almost overnight, hyperinflation stopped. The Rentenmark replaced the worthless currency. Factories restarted. Workers returned to their benches. Germany had been resurrected. And almost no one in the West noticed. We're halfway through, and we haven't even reached the most shocking part yet. If you're finding this story as gripping as I do, hit subscribe. EchoLens drops new documentaries every week. The stories that change how you see the world. Between 1924 and 1929, Germany's industrial output grew faster than any nation on Earth, including the United States. Berlin became the cultural capital of Europe, the Golden Twenties, die Goldenen Zwanziger. Jazz, art, architecture, cinema, A city that had been burning money for warmth 5 years earlier was now the most exciting place on Earth. But the entire miracle was borrowed. Every factory, every road, every building, funded by American loans. And when Wall Street crashed in October 1929, American banks called those loans back. The Golden Age collapsed in months. Unemployment surged past 30%. The Weimar Republic fractured along every fault line it had spent a decade building. A political vacuum had opened, and someone had been waiting for exactly this moment. What happened next wasn't inevitable. It was engineered. January 1933. Hitler is appointed chancellor, not through a coup, but through a deal. Germany's conservative elite believed they could use him, then discard him. They were catastrophically wrong. His finance minister, Hjalmar Schacht, the same man who had stopped hyperinflation in 1923, now invented a shadow currency called MIFO bills to secretly fund rearmament without it ever appearing in public accounts. Genius. And terrifying. By 1935, Germany publicly tore up the Versailles Treaty, announcing a new air force and a new conscript army in front of the world. The Allies issued formal protests, then did nothing. That silence was the signal Germany had been waiting for. 1936, remilitarized. The Allies blink. Austria, 1938, annexed in a weekend. The Allies blink. Czechoslovakia, 1938. Chamberlain flies to Munich, trades a nation for a piece of paper, and flies home declaring peace. 6 months later, Germany swallows the rest. Every act of aggression had been a test, and Europe had failed every single one. So how did a bankrupt, dismantled nation seize control of Europe in less than 2 decades? 3 reasons. The Allies created the conditions. The Treaty of Versailles was so punishing it guaranteed instability. Historians have argued this for 100 years. They're right. Germany never actually disarmed. The secret rearmament program, hidden on Russian soil, disguised as factories and farms, meant Germany's military was years ahead of anything the Allies assumed. The world looked away. Every act of aggression was met with appeasement, and Germany learned that weakness in others was a weapon. The story of Germany's rise isn't really about one man or one ideology. It's about what happens when a humiliated nation is given just enough rope and decides to hang its enemies with it. The decisions made at Versailles in 1919 echo through history in ways we're still untangling today. If you want to understand the 20th century, this is where it really begins. Subscribe to EchoLens for more stories like this, the ones that change how you see the world.